Caroline. She's the queen of talking. Hey, what's on your mind? She's on the inside. She got the scoop on the ones to watch, on the ones that's hot. No one can do it quite like Caroline.
Hey y'all, it's Caroline Hobby and welcome to my show, Get Real from the Music City, capital of the world. In each episode, I get the real story from the most inspiring, interesting people in Nashville, Tennessee. I have done everything in the music entertainment industry. I was in the trio Stealing Angels with 2 top 50 country charting songs, a finalist and runner-up on season 22 and season 24 of The Amazing Race. You can currently catch me on CMT's hit show, I Love Kelly Pickler. I am an entertainment news correspondent and host for the TV show Nashville Insider, and my podcast, Get Real with Caroline Hobby, was featured on iTunes' New and Noteworthy and charted on iTunes' Top 200 podcast. I'm also married to the smoking hot front man, Michael Hobby, of the #1 chart-topping band, 1,000 Horses. So buckle up and get ready to get real with me, Caroline Hobby. Welcome to my show. Craig Wayne Boyd! We're in your
All right, so
recording hizzy.
Yes, we are. I was going to say something stupid, but these dad jokes keep coming to my mind.
Well, you are a dad.
Yes, times 3 now.
Are you pretty good at dad jokes?
Horrible at them.
What were you going to say? What was the dad joke?
Oh, at this point, it's fleeting. Never mind.
Do you have dad brain too? Like
Yes,
on to the next?
Absolutely.
So how old is your third child that was just born into the world?
6 weeks old.
Fresh out the oven.
Oh, yes.
Talk to me about parenthood, fatherhood.
Right now, I can't think of anything because it's called zero sleep.
Are you exhausted?
Absolutely.
Okay, so obviously, Michael and I don't have kids yet. We're talking about having kids, but everyone says it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. You never get any sleep. You're always tired and exhausted. But then everyone's like, oh, but it's the best thing in the world.
I would agree with both of those statements.
I think torture in a way.
The only part that is hard is at the very beginning.
Okay.
Like the first like month or two, we're almost out of it. Like he's starting to smile. He's starting to he's notices who you are, or at least I think he does.
Uh-huh.
So now it's starting to get a little easier. But when all they do is eat, poop and sleep,
And cry.
and scream.
Scream.
At 4 a.m. and 5 a.m.
Oh my
and then again
gosh.
at 6 a.m.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first couple months, and then when
yeah,
do you
the first
hit
couple of months
the clear?
from my other 2 experiences. Yeah, it's usually about month 3. Then you start you can finally find a routine again.
Okay. So it's not like the scariest thing ever, and it's awesome.
It's not the scariest thing ever.
What are all your kids' names?
I have Jackson Wayne.
Jackson
He's
Wayne?
the oldest.
How old is Jackson Wayne?
Jackson Wayne is 5.5.
He's 5.5, so he's a little man.
Yes, and then we have Dakota Lynn, who is 2 going on 12.
Okay, she a little sassy.
Oh my word, yeah.
What
And
she
she
got
has
to
daddy.
say?
She has daddy wrapped already.
Oh, okay. Dakota Lynn owns you.
Absolutely, and yeah, she's the first time Jackson didn't go through the little 2-year-old stuff, the terrible twos as they call it. She's taken up for it. She's
What's her?
adding to.
What is she acting like?
Just everything is so dramatic all the time, and yeah, that's probably the best. And then she likes to climb everywhere.
Okay.
She's very independent and thinks that she can do anything on her own, which is a good thing
Totally.
later in life.
But not
Later in life.
You don't know what's going to kill you and what's not going to kill you.
Yeah. we haven't figured that part out yet for her, so yeah. So yeah, that attitude will be great. She does take after daddy with that attitude.
You Ain't No Quitter, as one of your
right?
albums was called. I don't know which one of your self-debuted albums.
That was number 2. Album number 2.
How many self-debuted? Not self-debuted. How many self-albums did you? God, what's the word? Independent releases did you have?
I had 2.
Okay.
Yeah, previous to going to The Voice.
Okay.
And
I Ain't No
then-
Quitter and
then there was I Ain't No Quitter, and then just the Craig Boyd. It was the.
Okay.
Now I've repackaged that as the early years.
the early years.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then our new baby though, back to babies, is we got little.
We have Graydon Scott.
I love that you do this double name thing. That's great,
Yeah.
and they go by their double names.
Yeah, so far they have.
Okay.
Yeah, Jackson Wayne, it just rolls off the tongue,
It
right?
does.
Come on.
Jackson Wayne. I love that.
I figured since I was a 3-name dude that I should
Carry
do
it
that
on.
do it with the kids too.
So you've had such a journey.
Yes.
in music.
I have.
When did you grew up in Texas?
I did.
And you grew up big time in the church.
Yes, grew up in the UPC church.
What does that mean?
United Pentecostal.
Ooh,
Which is
can you speak in tongues?
That was the Holy Rollers. Yes, that's the way I grew up.
Do you still practice?
I definitely believe in God and all of that fun stuff, and but maybe not as hardcore as the way I grew up.
I have always been curious about speaking in tongues. I would love to try. How do you do that?
I don't know that it's something that you just try.
Does it come over you?
Yeah, I think it's a spiritual moment that you have to be in the right mind frame, I think, to get to that point. But it's definitely something that I do believe is real, but not something that I go out every week and go try to experience again.
You've already done that, been there, done that.
Yes.
You know the experience.
No, my mom and my sister are devout Pentecostal ladies, and God bless them.
So what did you take away from growing up in such a strongly religious upbringing? How did that imprint you?
For one thing, it's very interesting is that you would think having a lot of rules and restrictions in your life at a young age like that, and it is true that there is the urge to rebel against that, and I did that. By the time I was, I left the church, I guess 17, 18 years old. I went into the non-denominational world, but from that rebellious side, I went into some different kinds of music. Anything that was not what I was told I was supposed to do.
Like gospel.
Yeah. So I got into rock music, got into my dad had left the church and he was playing country music. And so I got into that, honky tonks and stuff like that. But I think one thing that I took from all of that is that a lot of those rules and restrictions aren't really that bad. They have a
They're
good,
to protect you.
It's a good purpose there for, even down to, I didn't watch my first movie until I was 17 years old.
What was your first movie?
I believe it was like Jurassic Park in school.
Way to start.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Had nightmares for
I bet you're like,
for
why did
days
I
after
start
that.
this movie watching thing?
Exactly. They had stuff like that at school, and like they would show movies, and I would have to leave the class, even in high school. It was kind of crazy. But,
and the teachers respected that and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, from that, I realize now as I've grown older, that a lot of those rules and restrictions were there for a reason and there for a purpose. And sometimes I wonder if I shouldn't incorporate some of those on my own kids. It's like, all right, son, put the iPad down and go outside and play.
True that.
Don't sit and watch TV all day.
Exactly. Especially when you could be at a place like this playing with goats.
Yeah. Playing with goats, playing with all the instruments in here. That was something that I did as a kid. I put all of my energy instead of doing the stuff, playing the video games and playing or watching TV and being a couch potato. I had a piano in my life. I had guitars in my life. I had every kind of instrument.
So music was allowed.
Yeah, music was allowed.
And being a Pentecostal, music was
music was kind of in the forefront.
Because sometimes deeply religious sects are not. They don't believe in music.
There are
dancing, maybe.
Yeah, there's some of those out there, but the Pentecostal world, you'll notice that there's a lot of, especially in country music right now, there's a lot of us that came from the Pentecostal world. And
who else?
I believe Hauser has some of that in his background.
I can see that. He's got all that soul too.
Travis Tritt was one of my idols, and he's definitely from that world too. I believe Elvis was one that was in that realm.
So maybe being Pentecostal leads you to being an incredible musician and performer. I don't know if
it's that or if it's just at a young age, music is ingrained in your spirit and in your soul and in your mind. It consumes you.
And also, in a way, when you are having these huge religious moments, you're learning how to let go.
Yes.
And music's a part of that. So
I have compared being a performer and being on stage as very similar to being that, and that's you have a lot of people's attention, you have their emotions in your hands, and it's your responsibility to take them where they need to go, and that's something that I learned in church.
So you take being a performer very seriously.
Absolutely. I think it's that we have the ability to move people's emotions, and that is a powerful responsibility, and I think people should take that serious.
Okay, so you grow up Pentecostal, you leave at age 17.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go at age 17?
I had just, my parents had divorced, so I moved in with my father, and moving in with my dad, he was a weekend warrior, if you will.
So were you going on the road with
So
him?
I started playing music with him, and then hooked up with my own bands. I was in a band called Vine, which was like a Christian rock band crossover. I was with them for a short time, went into another band called Seven Channels. We were like on the Johnny Mosley soundtrack and a few other things. Left that band. I was as bass players. I was a bass player in those bands.
Oh, wow. Not even a singer?
Mm-mm.
But you've always had this huge voice.
This was all before I kind of discovered that. Other than singing in
Really?
church, I sang a lot in church,
So
singing
you
in
didn't discover
quartets and stuff like that. But
you didn't discover your powerhouse voice until later?
I never thought of myself as a frontman or that singer guy. I always wanted to be the musician that was like singing the background harmonies for everybody and playing instruments.
No way.
In fact, when I first moved to Nashville, that's what I did a lot of.
Really?
Brian Davis, who I think you know who he is, but for those that don't, he wrote One Hell of an A-Man with Brantley Gilbert and a lot of his songs.
Oh, yeah. I love Brian.
I was his bass player when I first moved to town. I was
No way.
like 2 weeks living in town, and I was playing bass for him and another guy.
He plays for
fellow
Brantley
friend.
now, I think, too.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And then Ken Johnson.
Yeah.
I played bass with him when he had his artist deal.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
Oh, I also saw you on Huck and Lily. They have
Oh,
with Fiddler Crab. I went on Huck and Lily too. They have this children's thing.
You gotta love that stuff.
I love it.
Yeah, but yeah, so Ken and I go back a long ways because of that.
He's
But
on
that's what I
Island
always
Kelly
looked at
Figure, I think.
myself as, that kind of guy.
Oh gosh. Okay, that throws a loop in this for me because I thought you always knew you had this huge talent. When did you discover your big voice?
I started getting requests to. I was dabbling in singing and writing songs and stuff.
Okay.
And then I got playing with Brian Davis. His publisher at the time, Ron Stuvey, asked about me singing some demos.
Okay.
And he was running BMG at the time.
So we owe your career to Ron Doobie.
Ron Stuvey.
Stuvey.
Stuvey. Yeah. Oh, Stuvey. Yeah, it was him and Michelle Berlin that were working there, and those two were the two that said, "Hey, why don't you come in and sing some demos?" And I started getting more into that, and from that started writing with those writers, and that's kind of when it progressed into me being the singer.
So you moved to Nashville to be a player in a band?
I thought I was going to come in and be a sideman musician, bass player mainly,
Okay.
and harmony singer.
Wow.
And was experimenting. Don't get me wrong. I was playing some shows out here and there as a front man, as a singer. But that was I felt like, all right, this is what I can do well. It wasn't, from that, then I was in a vocal group, Southland, that I'd started with two incredible other front men. And still then I wasn't on my own. I had two other guys up there that were helping me get all of that stuff out. And then once that band split up, that's when I finally went solo.
Okay.
And I knew that I needed a lot of work at doing that.
How so?
Just in the fact of getting up there and, again, being able to know what the situation is and know how to take people where they needed to go. So I decided I would put together a band, and we went on the road.
That's the best thing you can do.
In a 15-passenger van. There was
What year is this?
myself and 4 other sweaty dudes. This would have been like 2006 or 7.
Okay, so you had moved to Nashville in 2004, and you got a publishing deal right away.
That's right.
So that's kind of amazing to get a publishing deal right away. So obviously you're an incredible writer. How did you get a publishing deal right away?
Again, through playing bass with Brian Davis, met Arliss Albritton in that whole mix. Was writing stuff with at that point. Incidentally enough, they were trying to put together a vocal group, and where I got the idea is they put myself and Randy Hauser and Wade Battle together, and we started singing some stuff together, and it just didn't seem like that was the right fit. But that is what put it in my head that I needed to put together a vocal group.
What was it like being in a semi-group with Randy Hauser? And I freaking love him.
I had love you, buddy. I'm telling. This is my tell-all.
Oh,
No, I was already a fan of his. Just and at that point he had no record deal or anything. He was writing songs just like I was, and I I was pretty much in awe that I was like, all right, they're putting me on this caliber of singers. This is pretty cool to be in the room.
Yeah.
And I guess at that moment, we just didn't, as the three of us, didn't feel that that was the right blend vocally. So I went on to research that and try to find guys that I felt like would blend with me even better.
Okay. Any crazy story you can tell us from those days?
Oh my goodness, that was the good times of Nashville, I think, because it was like just like it is now. I just don't know anybody anymore because I've been out of the loop. But back then it was all the guys that are now on the radio hanging out. It was Jared Neiman and Jamie Johnson running around with short hair and no beard.
Probably Lee Bryce was probably in there.
Lee Bryce was in there. I was kind of on the outskirts, but there was Rob Hatch. There was so many of the guys. Even back then, I was writing with being at EMI with Red Akins a bunch. In fact, he came out and went hunting on my property one time.
Oh my gosh!
It's just those times were the good times of Nashville. For me, I really, really enjoyed that time.
So you get in this band with Hauser and Battle. And then y'all go your own ways. You form your own band now. Southland.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens with that?
We started doing showcases around town and playing, and it felt like it was going to happen. It was like
getting some good momentum.
Oh yeah, everything
the buzz was hot.
The buzz was hot, and then incidentally, one of the guys that was in the band, his name was Levi Sims. Mm-hmm. He was also known as Levi Garrett.
Okay.
He was the little boy that lost to Leanne Rimes on Star Search.
Star Search. Oh my gosh.
Which is crazy. He was such a phenomenal singer, and I miss him big time. We didn't know that he had cystic fibrosis.
Oh.
And it came down. We were so close to. We were in the studio recording, and all of that stuff, and then he come out and said that he had cystic fibrosis and that he had been given a short time. And we did lose him a few months after that.
Sorry.
So it was really, really sad. And that kind of is what put the squash.
Yeah.
I tried to keep it on and brought in a few other guys, but nothing. The magic was never there like it was at that point.
And you can't really repeat magic once you have it.
Right. So that's when I knew I needed to just revamp and do something different. And that's when I took on the role and took the role serious as a frontman.
Wow. So you've already been through quite a journey to this point. So now we're like at 2006, 2007?
2007, I believe. Yeah.
What a life already. So now you're like, okay, I'm going to just be a front man, a solo dude. Mm-hmm. Was that a scary decision to go out on your own?
It was, but I think I was in the moment, so it's like, all right, let's go.
I ain't no quitter.
Yeah, it's like let's go. We got songs we'll play. And so that was fun. We went on the road for about 2 or 3 years. I came back in. I was always living here. But turned my focus back to Nashville again, and I worked with some guys that were working with like Emerson Drive and stuff. Yeah. Kim and Jerry Leisky. They had put together an independent label, and we were working on the I Ain't No Quitter album, which we've mentioned a few times.
I just love that you have that because I can see that in you, and even hearing just really at the beginning of your story, what you've already just kept moving forward. You never quit.
Yeah, I think that's what you're supposed to do in life. But
I think so. A lot of people don't do that though.
It was interesting about that because I put together that album with that being the kind of the forefront. This is my theme song in life. Mm-hmm. And little did I know that I was going to actually live that song almost verbatim after that.
You did it to yourself.
You know what? I've said this before in interviews. I wonder if sometimes we don't vicariously, as musicians and artists, vicariously or subconsciously
forecast your future.
Yeah, put ourselves in some weird situations. But
so how did you end up living that song?
From that album, we were out on the road on a radio tour, and some investors didn't put in their money, and I pulled back into basically desks being pulled out of an office and saying we're having to close the doors.
Oh wow.
And
so you come back into office shutting down.
I was sitting I believe we got up to like 33 on Music Row charts. We were starting to hit Billboard at that point, and then all of a sudden nothing.
Dang it! So now this is like again. You're like, what am I going to do now?
And that put me on almost like a downward spiral at that point, mentally.
What were you thinking mentally? How do you handle something like that?
The best way you know how, and it sometimes is not the best way to handle those things. And from that, I ended up I lost my son's mom, and I split, and I lost the house that we had together. Of course, it was a typical country song. Car blows up, everything.
Was it probably one of the harder, more darker times of your life?
Probably so. Next to moving to Nashville.
Why was that?
That was another bad breakup that happened there. I was married at that point. And so we won't go into that one because that's even darker. No, it's not even darker, but it was at that point. Yeah, it was very painful. It did, so coming out of the Aint No Quitter into this like just almost deep dark depression, trying to figure out if I was even supposed to be doing this anymore.
So what do you do when you hit that place where your whole life is literally falling apart, but you feel it in your heart? Because do you believe in callings? Did you feel like you were called to do this?
Absolutely.
Like, to do music? So when did you find your calling for this?
I think I always knew that I was going to do music from probably age of 15, 16 years old. Is when I really knew that was something that I really, really enjoyed, and it was going to be something that I wanted to do for a career.
What does a calling feel like to you? Like, how do you know it's not just like a hobby or like you like it?
I've said it many times when they've asked about advice to up and coming musicians. My advice is to quit. And if you can, then awesome.
Yeah.
But if you can't, and there's that desire, it keeps you up at night. You dream about it. You have those crazy visions of what is supposed to be happening, or what, those songs that come to you in the middle of the night. If those things are happening to you and you can't walk away, then you start honing your craft.
I love that. Okay, so you were confident this was your calling.
Mm-hmm.
You're committed, but now all of a sudden your life's in shambles. So how do
and
you
so
navigate that?
To do that, you suck it up and you go, and I started working in it was interesting. There was one story that's kind of funny. I was out doing construction work, trying to make some ends meet because I didn't have the money to go on the road to play.
Or probably pay for a band or anything.
Yeah, it was like I was pawning guitars to make sure that I paid bands, and those guys know I'm serious about that because it's the truth. Some of my prized possessions I was pawning to make sure, because I get screwed on the road from agents and things like that would just mess you up. It's like, guys, I promise I will pay you somehow. And those things were just happening. That's when those things start happening. That's when you're like, okay, am I even supposed to be doing this? And then you think back, you look, okay, but I was the dumb guy that put out a song called Aint No Quitter, so now you really can't quit.
Because you have to live your legacy.
Exactly. So it was a double-edged sword, and like I said, I kept just going further and further down, to the point of living on a friend's sofas, 3 or 4 different friends, because I had my son too. We were going back and forth.
Was your son with you when you were living on
back and forth.
Wow. So what was that like?
So trying to keep up with that, and take care of myself, and buy diapers and all that fun stuff.
Dang.
It was
major perseverance and strength within you.
It was again a really interesting part of my life. But
what did you learn from that part of your life?
That stupid decisions come out with horrible results.
Okay, so you owned your experience.
Oh yeah. I mean, I still do. I don't blame any of it on anyone else. It was some of it was of my own doings, and some of it was just luck of the draw. That's what happens. As we've already talked about in the past, it is the music business, and that you have to be prepared for that part too. As much as I wish that it was only the creative side that we get to deal with, it's
There's
everything
a whole
else too.
Business side too.
And I was fighting not only the depression of wondering if I was supposed to be doing it, but fighting keeping from being jaded about it and saying, okay, blaming everybody else.
Right.
Basically.
It's hard not to do the blame game because I'm sure there's a million fingers you could point.
Oh, absolutely. And ultimately, as the old saying goes, you point one finger and there's 3 pointing right back at you when you do.
Is it hard to own that when you are so angry? Like when you feel like it's not really your fault?
It depends on the day. It depends on the day. But from that, in the middle of all that craziness, I got an email. I was still trying to keep up with business as much as possible, and I got this email, and it was from an email that I didn't know, and it says, "Hey, are you interested in being on The Voice?"
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, in my anger and everything else, I thought it was a joke, so I literally responded back to the email out of spite and was like, "This is a joke, right?" And about 2 days later, I got an email back and said, "No, this isn't a joke. We actually are interested in you. We like your songs."
How'd they find you?
I assume via YouTube or through all the experiences here in Nashville. Someone
Wow.
turned them on to me.
Wow. Do you feel like that's one of those little miracles from God? That's
I think
just
so.
like a saving grace. Like we're about to like throw in the towel, but then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you're not supposed to quit.
Yeah.
You're not. This is your
And
destiny.
it was to that point of like, I'd had the conversation with my drummer at the time, and I was like, "Dude, I can't do it. I just can't do it." In fact, it was not far down the street from where we're at right now that conversation happened, and it was like, I don't know. If something doesn't break in the next couple of days or next couple of weeks, I'm gonna break.
Well, I mean, financially, your child. I mean,
Mhm.
everything. It's like you're at the end of your rope.
And at this point, or at that point, even now, this is what I've put all my life, energy, and knowledge, and my college has been Nashville at this point. You know, This is what I know. This is what I know to do.
So you get that email, and then when you find out it's not fake, what goes on in your mind?
I was like, okay, I've been of the mindset of, okay, we go out there, we do the vans, we go out there and we play 200 and some odd shows.
And some of those shows get bad raps, like, oh, you're
Yeah.
going to go on a talent show.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're a real musician. A lot of real musicians have a
And
hard
I
time going on
had to
that.
think about that. It was like, because that was, even though it's only been 3 years ago, a lot has changed in perception in the past 3 years.
It really has.
And that perception was starting to leave a little bit, but it was still fairly prevalent. And I had to
What was the
weigh
perception that people
weigh
were
the
having?
odds. That, you know, at least from my experience, from the folks that I was around, their thoughts were like, "All right, man, that's cheating. You know,
Right.
That's the way. You're cheating your way into getting a record deal. That's not real musicians, like you
Right.
said." And you go on there, and I promise you that's not the case.
It's totally not the case.
It was probably one of the more, I think, had I not been through a lot of the things that I'd already been through in the music business, you had to have just as much tenacity, but in different ways, to be on one of those shows. Down to just the daily ritual and schedule of being up at, going to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning and getting back up at 5 in the morning to be ready, and not only be ready, but be able to sing and be prettified and be prettified, get your hair did, and go through all of that fun stuff too. So that was and it actually for me was a blessing to all that jaded feeling that I had started to build up, and I wasn't letting it take over me, but it definitely was starting to feel that I had to let all that go to go on a show, and allow myself to be vulnerable again, just like I was when I first moved to Nashville.
And you almost maybe had to retrain yourself how to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so you get the email, you say that's not a joke. So then you go on The Voice, and how do you get on there? Like, how does it go? How do you get to the actual Voice, not just the audition rounds?
I of course did my first audition here in Nashville, and from there, then they flew me out to LA and did a couple of rounds of auditions there. Went through psych tests, all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, they check your brain.
Oh yeah, and that's interesting. It's funny. It just fits into everything.
Because your brain was probably at an interesting place at that point.
Oh, absolutely. But oddly enough, the psychologist came back and he says, "Well, Craig, you have a couple of faults that are pretty glaring." And we're like, "All right, what do we got here, buddy?" I was like, I'm using 3 names. I'm not a serial killer, I promise." But he came back and said, "Craig, you're positive to a fault."
Really?
And that was one of those moments that was like a light bulb. It was like, all right, if that's my fault, then that's one I'm going to proudly wear.
I love that. So you always have been able to find the silver lining.
I've always tried to find this. I've always tried to find that silver lining in everything. You have to. Life would really suck otherwise.
So you get to The Voice, and now you're through all the auditions. You're in the big middle of it, and you're auditioning for the TV show. And how do you feel at that point? How does that go down? Was that nerve-wracking?
I was still, kind of like, all right, I hope I can do this.
What do you mean? What were you scared about?
At that point, there was a lot of folks there. I mean, there's a lot of phenomenal singers.
Yeah.
And I still don't put myself at the level of some of the guys that are on the radio. I mean, I do my best, and that's what I had to focus on, was concentrate on what I could do. Yeah, because I don't sing like Hauser. I don't sing like George Strait. I sing like Craig Wayne Boyd.
But those guys already exist, so you don't need to sing like them.
And that was the one thing that I got out of that was it really helped me define who I was as a person, even though I was singing cover songs, but I approached all of those things with my own attitude and my own direction. Who
did you discover that you were?
I think what you see now is who I am. And
how would you break that down?
It's boy, that's hard to say.
It's hard to describe yourself, isn't it?
It is. I think there's definitely that emotional side of me that has come out a lot more since doing all of that, and then just the probably the tenacity has increased tenfold. And I've also learned not to take myself so serious.
That's such an important lesson to learn.
To be able to look at yourself and laugh.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? That's funny.
That will get you so far in life if you can just laugh at yourself.
And there was a lot to laugh at, so
No.
that makes it pretty easy at that point.
No. What were you laughing at? What do you mean?
Just how goofy I was on camera. I'd never really done stuff like that, and I'm like, oh God, I just said that.
What was the biggest
bad.
thing that you said that you're like, oh shoot?
Oh man, the list is a mile long. It really is.
So you just let it go.
Yeah, but again, that was part of being vulnerable again and letting myself be that way.
I love that. So then Blake, you get on Team Blake, and how is he?
The guys, pretty much what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
That is the truth. And I know that sounds very cliche, but it is the truth. And he really made me feel like I was his little brother.
He did.
Which was awesome.
So he really nurtured you. What advice did he give you?
He was the guy that really pushed me to, he was like, Craig, be yourself, believe in yourself. And yeah, people may not be believing in you right now, but they will. As long as you do, people will feel that and see that. And that's
amazing.
That's really, really pushed me to do. And I had a short stint with Gwen
I know, so you got both of them. And what was Gwen like?
I'm their love child. Come on.
You are their love child. So if they don't ever have a child, it's you.
Exactly. See, got this.
What was she like? What advice did she give you?
You know, it was surprising because I remember her. She was like coming out of the Pentecostal church and starting to listen to secular music and things. I mean, "Don't Speak" was one of those songs that were like the quintessential song of my probably my early breakups.
Yeah.
It's like, don't. But yeah, so I thought of her as like this rock star. She was so motherly, which was really so sweet. That was what was cool about it. And I think she saw the stuff going on in my head, what I was trying to go through, and I had kind of at that point kind of pigeonholed myself, wanting to like chase after maybe the outlaw side of me, which is yes, I'm an outlaw, but it's total by accident, and just
an accidental outlaw.
It's like I get told to do stuff, and I think my management, everybody can agree with this, is as the more times that I'm told to do it, the least likely it is going to be that it gets done. It's like,
you can't be told.
You know, it's like, oh man. And I don't know what it is in me that does that, but
Maybe it's growing up Pentecostal.
I see it in my daughter.
Yeah.
that's the one we're gonna have to fight with. But yeah. So that being said, she was like, get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And open yourself up. Don't be stuck into a certain look or whatever else. I mean, if one day you want to wear Converse, wear Converse. If you want to wear boots the next day, wear boots. You know,
you can be
like,
versatile.
Yeah, be versatile, and that's one thing she's done really well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the whole thing of chopping off the incredibly long hair happened.
Really?
Yeah.
So did that happen on The Voice?
Mm-hmm.
You chopped the hair mid-voice.
Yes.
And what did the people say?
I think there was like a shock for a lot of people. First of all, the people that know me and had told me to cut my hair before were like, "Why didn't you do that years ago?" But again, I can't be told to do that.
Right.
It's like I had to feel it, and at that moment, I felt it. It was like, all right, this is the right thing.
Are you glad that you made that move?
I think so. And
Was
you
it
know,
kind of
I don't
like
know.
a statement to yourself?
It was a symbolism of letting go of the past for me.
Love that.
And I knew it was something I had to do to be able to move forward.
Really? Like you had to make a big statement to yourself.
Yeah.
It had to be like, this was my prized possession. You loved your hair. So you're like, I am literally shedding my past.
Yeah.
That's badass of you. Did you feel free?
It did. I think, and that opened me up at that point to be able to, again, that was part of me going through this whole process of finding myself again.
Amazing. Okay. So then did you ever have a scare that you're going to get kicked off The Voice, that you weren't going to make it?
No.
You never thought?
I thought that there was always the possibility of doing it, of getting kicked off, but I never
Believed you would.
I never believed that I would, per se, I guess. But I never focused on it. It was not something that I put in my mind to think about.
Was that intentional?
Mm-hmm.
So you're an intentional thinker. Are you a visualizer?
Absolutely. But that was something that at that point I was like bulldog laser focused, that I could do one thing. The only thing that I had under my control was me going out and doing my best. So I busted my ass, made sure that I could do my job every single time that I went out there, down to at that point was helping draw up what sets that I wanted, how I wanted the lighting, what musicians I wanted on stage, just diving head first into all of the production side and also on the arrangements of the songs, things like that. So I just focused on all of that, and then if you have that much going on in your head, you're not worried about how the other contestants or anybody else is going to do their performance.
And that's so much better. It's such a waste of your energy to be focusing on someone else. All you can do is control yourself, like you said.
Because you can't change what they're going to do.
No. Okay, so you get to like the end, and you're standing up there, and it's like this is the moment. You're either going to be runner-up or winner. What's going through your head? What do you feel? Are you like, is this weird? All of a sudden you're on this TV show that came out of the blue after you were just in the lowest point of your life, and now you're hanging out with Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton? What is life?
It was pretty mind blowing. But the only thing I could think of is they had told us like over and over, if you win, you have to sing. They're going to hand you a mic. Be looking for whoever has the mic. And you got to sing, and that's all I could think about is like, okay, if I win, I have to grab the mic and sing. If I win, I have to grab the mic and sing. It was like all I could think about. It's like, what was the words again? I just learned this song a couple of days ago.
You're visualizing winning then too. That's probably great that you were thinking about that you had
That's where my mind was at, and it was funny. There was a little bit of flack because my ex and my son come running on stage, and all I could think about, I was like, where's the mic?
I gotta sing.
I was like, the show must go on. I have to do this part.
You're like, I do have feelings and emotions, but I've got to do well. I just won. I need to sing.
That was the point.
That's a lot of pressure to have to sing when you win something like that.
Yeah, and to hold it together and not, because it was right after that I finally was able to release it. I just bawled my eyes out at that point because I was like, wow, it's intense.
Yeah. And like, so from the moment when you were literally needing a miracle and then getting the email to The Voice to winning The Voice, how long was that?
That was the first audit. Well, the email was around December, the end of December, around Christmas time. And the first audition was February 13th, the day right before We're coming up on it.
I love that. Oh my God. No, right now. Today's February 13th.
There you go. That's
Holy
weird.
cow. Is that?
Oh, wow.
I like those little.
Is today really?
Today's February 13th.
Oh, wow. Yeah, number 13 keeps showing up in my life, too, for some reason. That's weird.
So February 13th is the day
this
that
is weird we're talking about that today.
you auditioned for The Voice today on February 13th?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That means you're on the right track again right now, honestly. That's called synchronicity. It's little winks from the universe. Right. Okay, so you're obviously on the right path with your career still. Okay, so when did you win?
I'm about to tear up. That's weird. All right,
that's a wink from the universe.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it was February 13th.
You're favored. You're favored, Craig Wayne Boyd. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's amazing. I feel lucky that I just got to experience that with you. Holy cow.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
So where were we at? So winning the show and all of that experience that coming out of that was again. So the jet set after winning was probably the hardest part.
But all that happened in like 6 months.
Yeah, that's right. It started February 13th all the way to December. That was December 17th, I believe.
The Voice lasted that long? No, how long was your?
It was December. Yeah, December 17th is when I won. Yeah.
Wow.
So from the very first
a year to a year, what a difference a year can make.
Yeah.
You're like at the highest point of your life. This 1 year, the year before, you're at the lowest point of your life. Yeah. Isn't that not crazy?
It is. It's mind blowing.
That leads me to another question. Do you believe in miracles, and do you believe that that's a miracle, right?
Absolutely.
That's an incredible.
There's been, I've had some of those experiences of stuff like that. It's just it's mind blowing how those things and people not knowing who you are or not at all. And come up and saying, this is about to happen for you. And then it does happen.
Like prophesying?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been...
and then you put out your debut single. And this is the coolest story I've ever heard. Talk to me about your debut single and the history it made.
So that night, we debuted My Baby's Got a Smile on Her Face. And I find out, I get the call on Christmas Eve, that it has debuted at number 1 on Billboard sales charts.
That means it comes into the charts at the number one position.
Mm-hmm.
It enters as a number 1 song.
Yeah.
Stop it.
And
did you freak out?
I was like, okay, what exactly does that mean? They were like, Garth Brooks is the only other person to ever do that. I'm like, okay, that's what that means.
You and Garth Brooks are the only 2 people to debut at number 1
since the chart starting in like 1958, I believe.
What were you thinking? Like, what goes on in your brain at this point?
It's like, okay, that's going to be hard to top.
Yeah, right? I know, you're setting the standard pretty much as high as you can go.
Yeah. And, for that whole experience, really, it's like throwing rocket fuel on a career. Mm-hmm. And so... I mean, I knew it was going to like skyrocket up in the air, but I also knew that there was no foundation underneath all of that.
Ooh, interesting.
And so my mind immediately went into work mode again.
Yeah.
It's like, oh crap! Well, we keep getting higher. We're way
your rocket keeps going. It's launching. It's up there.
And in my mind, the whole time, I'm like, man, I got to keep building. I got to build this foundation underneath this because it's going to come down. And I got to know. We got to make sure we have a good place to land at and not end up back down where I started at a year before that.
Right.
And that was I think that became the immediate focus for me at that point.
So how did you do that?
Some of it smartly, some of it not.
What was the smartest thing and the stupidest thing?
Oh man, that's hard to say. That really is.
So gray.
Yeah, because some of it, there's benefits to everything, and I would never change a dang thing that's ever happened to me in my life.
I love that. I love that you feel that way. Because there's beauty in the breakdown. Like, that's so essential to the growth of who
who wrote that?
You should have. I'm sure it's been written somewhere, but if not, it's yours.
Yeah, and that's very true.
You learn more about yourself, I feel like, in those moments than you do in any other moment, really.
I agree.
You learn what you're made of.
Yeah, because all the stuff that's fluff gets burned out pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. And you know who's really there for you.
Yeah. You
know who's really by your side. It's kind of nice to weed everyone out to really know who is on your team and who's in your corner.
Yeah, sometimes it hurts.
Yeah.
Sometimes that stuff hurts, but
Because you think people are your advocate, and then you realize, oh, nope, you're
yeah,
not. You're not.
and sometimes some of the people that you believe in the most are those people, but there's
Music will
for
break
every
your heart, won't it?
for every person in every situation that you lose something or someone like that, there's someone that comes into your life that takes the place, if not take the place, does it even better. And makes their own space, I think. And that happened to me via meeting my wife at that point.
Okay, so how did that happen? Talk to me about that.
I met her basically 2 days or a day and a half after, 2 days after I won.
Really?
I had jet setted, like I said, it's just a whirlwind right afterwards. You have to go hop on a plane and you go to New York and you're doing all this stuff. And then I was the first contestant that Ellen hollered at us and said, I've never had the voice people on here, but I want him there.
You went on
so
Ellen?
I had to fly back the next morning to come back and be on Ellen.
How was Ellen?
This awesome, and I hope to go back on
Ellen.
there. Only thing I regret is I didn't get to dance. I was like,
didn't
come
get to
on.
dance? Oh, man. Okay, so
I
next
was
time
like,
you're dancing.
Next time I got to dance.
That's so
That's
cool. So
fun.
you go on Ellen. You're like, oh my God, I'm freaking out right now. I'm like
Oh yeah,
reliving
it's
this with you.
like life was crazy.
Was it so fun being in that whirlwind?
It was. I mean, it's just so surreal. You're like, I'm doing this, really?
Like me?
This is crazy.
Yeah.
And I got done with all of that, and it was crazy. I got to my hotel. It was going to be flying out like in the next day or something to go play a private show, my first show off after that. And I had a songwriter buddy from here in Nashville holler at me and said, hey, dude, I'm in town, and I'm going to this party. It's an industry party that it's for Wilhelmina Modeling Agency. It was like, models, I'm single. I just want a TV show.
You're like, I need to go rock
Yes.
it.
Yes.
You're in your prime right now.
Let's go do this.
Yeah.
And so I walk up with my songwriter buddy who had just like jumped in a pool and busted his front tooth out, was missing it at the time. Oh yeah, we're like redneck walking into this like just the most beautiful people in the world type place.
Yeah. But you just won The Voice 2 days before,
yeah.
so you got that going for you.
So it was we were working and I looked up at the end of the carpet and was having to do the check-in stuff, and lo and behold, this beautiful blonde was sitting there, and I was turned to my buddy. I was like, I'm marrying her.
Really? How did you
Absolutely.
know?
I just like our eyes connected when I was standing in line.
And you just knew?
I was like, dude, this is it.
Was it just a feeling, like
Yeah.
a soul feeling?
Yep. And what was
Wow.
crazy is that she had the same feeling, didn't have a clue,
That gives me chills.
had no clue who I was.
Really?
She didn't have a TV in her house at that point.
So she didn't even
was
watch
like,
your season.
She was like living on the beach and like having fun, but she was working for working at the modeling agency too.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And pretty much ever since then we've been inseparable.
Oh my gosh. So the heart does not lie. You knew.
It was crazy. I was like, I'm glad she felt the same way. I didn't have to be a stalker.
What makes a great marriage?
Being able to listen, and also, I think being able to give and take, and just she's always right.
Smart man right there.
She's always right.
She's always right. Okay, I would talk to you forever because your stories are fantastic. But I think we're already going we're almost at an hour, so I'm gonna have to wrap up.
I'm already at an hour.
I know.
Sorry.
I love it.
We may have to do like a 2-part
We
session
gotta
on
do-
this.
I have all these questions I want to ask you. I just want
I didn't even get to the album stuff.
I want to.
Sorry.
Album. Let's talk about your album. Album first before we wrap up. Okay, so tell me about
You
this
can
new
use
album.
any of that stuff in there, right?
Yeah, talk to me about this album. Top Shelf, Craig Wayne Boyd. This is your. You just released this in October. Let's talk about it.
Well, what's great about it because it's all of that leads into this right here.
So this is your life.
So after the voice stuff, I went on the road like nonstop.
Yeah.
Just going back out and playing music for everyone. And I looked up 2 years into that and realized I hadn't put out any music yet. That I had been playing, some great songs.
Just been on a whirlwind.
It's like, nonstop running feeding a couple of singles out there and everything else, but no full-length album. So at the beginning of the year, I went into the studio, this studio here.
Which is amazing. Kenny Rogers' old house.
Yes.
So there's good vibes in here.
And we went through so many songs, and I really wanted to make sure that it reflected my life where I'm at right now.
Yep.
And this is the album that I feel like is my best to this point.
So tell me, I listened to We Sweat. I love that. So you obviously, like, you're about sweating every part of life. If you're not sweating in all areas, you're not living right.
It's like, you know what? Work hard.
Yeah.
If you work hard, you get to play hard.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the story of that.
And then you have a sweet song. I feel like it's a Better Together. I feel like that has to be about your wife.
Better Together, I wrote sitting right back over in that chair.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a song that was shortly after meeting my wife. We were in Santa Monica, and we were standing up on top of one of the buildings overlooking the sunset. And I was like, I looked at her. I've been here before. I've never seen the sunset look like it does right now. And
Stop.
and that was it was just one of those moments, and I was like, it stuck with me. And when I sat down, I was like, you know what, life has just became so much better with her. So that's the song we wrote.
Do you have a favorite on your album, or are they all your babies?
They all say something different for me. From Stuck in My Head, which was the first single that we put out off of this, that was just one of those songs that was in honor of Brian Davis and Arliss Albritton. Those guys are the two that wrote that one.
That's awesome, because they kind of got you going.
Got me started in town, and it was cool to be able to
tribute to your friends.
To do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the song. I mean, it really does.
You didn't
get
do them
stuck
a favor,
in your,
obviously.
It was like the song really does get stuck in your head.
Once again, you're living into your songs.
Yeah, right. And probably my favorite is Somewhere in There. And the reason being is it does.
It's called Somewhere in There.
Mm-hmm. And funny story is we were supposed to do it as a duet with another country artist, who is busy with a TV show at the moment.
Okay.
And she couldn't make it into town to get into the studio, and according to the deadline that we had set on us.
Okay.
So I called my wife on the way out here to the studio and said, "Babe, can you meet me there in about 45 minutes?"
Does your wife sing?
So we sang the album. We sang that song together.
She's a singer?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. She went to Berkeley as a jazz major.
How sweet is that?
Again, another thing that we didn't know when we first met.
Y'all were meant to be.
It was crazy.
But how sweet to have her sing on this with you when this is such a personal album to you. So if you could plan out your year, if it could go just perfectly according to Craig Wayne Boyd and your vision and your mind, what does it look like to you?
My year realistically, in my brain, would be going back out on the road and getting out and playing the music for the people again. That's what I am really focused on right now, and hopefully we can have a single at least hit top 10.
Hell yeah!
That's where I want to go.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
I'm keeping those goals realistic, right?
I see that. That feels like easy breezy for you.
That's my focus, and that's what I want to be working towards.
I love that. Okay, a few little quick rapid fire.
Yep.
They're kind of deep questions, but you're a deep guy. What does the world need now?
Love, sweet love.
I believe.
Man, see, now you got me on song titles. I was going to say I Can Fly.
You can't fly. That's kind of fitting, though.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Incidentally, that's what I have on my arm.
What is it? I'm telling you, this is a divine interview right now. I believe on your arm. Okay.
Believe, yeah.
I love that.
Always believe.
My greatest joy is?
My kiddos.
Love that. Even more, that's amazing you can say that, because I know music has to be really top up there. But obviously kids. Yeah, that sounds heartless of me. Yes.
Yeah,
Humans over music.
But it is very true.
Uh-huh.
Even having my wife come in and sing with me in the studio, that was something that was so personal for me, because I'd never allowed anyone in the room with me to sing, and to have her in the room with me and share that with a significant other. I mean, even with my wife, it was just something that was hard to do.
You're really like breaking boundaries for yourself this year.
I know, right?
You're breaking down walls.
Like, come on.
Who are you? Dang. Okay. The point of life.
To touch someone else.
I love that. And I feel like you are definitely doing that with your whole life, your whole story. I mean, you need to your story is incredible and inspiring, but then this music, you're doing that. You're walking that walk.
Well, thank you. I hope that's what we can do with this stuff.
And I like to wrap all my interviews up with "Leave Your Light." You've been so inspirational. The whole thing's inspiring, but how do you want to inspire the world? How have you been inspired? How do you want to inspire the world with your life? Just leave your basically like your legacy. What is your light that you want to leave?
If I leave a positive word with other people that that makes their life better in some form or fashion, whether it be getting through heartache or enjoying a happy time that's happening for them, if I do that, then I feel like I'm doing my part.
I love that. Craig Wayne Boyd.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm voting you for like the inspiration of the world. This is so inspiring. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. And
Thank you
congrats
so much
on
for
your
having
new
me.
album, everyone. Go buy it. Top shelf. Craig Wayne Boyd. It's awesome. Your voice is incredible. You the man.
Yeehaw.
Bye.